Since day one, Clawbringer has been one of the most underrated characters in all of Wonderlands, purely off the fact that it just doesn't have anything flashy like Spellshot or Greyborn. But this character's elemental powers really do synergize perfectly with the Stabbomancer and its incredible status effect damage. What's going on, everybody? Byrdman here with another Wonderlands build. Today I'm going to be showing off my elemental Clawbringer build that multi-classes with Stabbomancer. It's different, again, status effects and elemental damage comboed with a bunch of amazing legendary weapons. Really does make this probably my strongest build to date. Make sure to follow me over on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch at Byrdman778 and using code BIRD at G Fuel checkout. Currently, my code is at 30% off, so get yourself some of that Tiny Tina's Cherry Vanilla Wonderlands flavor. It sounds freaking amazing. And again, we're starting a stream right now every single day starting at noon Eastern Standard Time, so swing on by. Let's test out some builds and get some Chaos Chamber runs. All right, hop right on into the video. So when it comes to the weapons that we're going to be using for this setup, obviously we're going to be using a live wire for this just to help strip some different shields and a bunch of stuff like that. What's really great about it is the fact that it actually shoots bullets, but also has that arc torrent that does gun damage. So that's really nice just to chain between enemies. It can even melee, and that chaining will still activate as long as you're holding the weapon. But again, this is just going to be more for like your shield blue bar bosses. The main weapon you're using for this entire setup is going to be the White Rider. What's really great about it is the fact it has two different firing modes, a single beam and a dual beam. The dual beam will be better for just like a bigger group of enemies, but it does a very much reduced amount of damage versus the single beam. That is a very chunky, very high damage beam, which I would recommend using 99% of the time. This is like my favorite weapon because the fire bonuses and the shock bonuses that we get from our different gear and our skills really help make this just like the absolute just like bombardment of elemental damage, and we even have action skill active elemental damage on it as well, so it's really nice. Then we have the Blazing Volley. This is just a really kind of fun weapon used against like red bar enemies. It has a burst fire to it, and some of the projectiles will kind of like seek out enemies if it's close enough to them. So again, definitely use this again if you're just like doing like early stages of like Chaos Chamber, but I would say that the White Rider or the Liquid Cooling is going to be your better options for like end game. Again, talking about the Liquid Cooling, this one's just really nice just because as long as you are doing the critical hits on enemies, your gun will never heat up, so you are able to essentially infinitely fire as long as you are hitting critical hits. And then finally, our Diamond Guard sword that we have, it's really cool because the Diamond Guard ability says melee attacks deal random elemental damage to increase your status effect application chance and status effect damage by 10% for 10 seconds and stacks up to 5 times. Really fun just to run up to an enemy, just smack them a couple times real fast. It has a really fast swing speed and being able to get that boost to our elemental and status effect damage. When it comes to gear that we're using, honestly, I'm just going into kind of some gun damage, melee damage into these two different rings right here. I would definitely say elemental damage might be some of your best stuff, but at least being able to fill out those other pieces like melee crit, spell crit, and again, gun damage is really nice for us to do. I'm using a body rune as my shield, just purely off the fact that whenever we get a kill, we restore some health, and then we do bonus fire damage. That's just nice just to actually have the extra fire application on top of what we already have. Plus, again, just getting some health for survivability reasons. Going down to our class item, we are using one with ability damage movements being gun crit. It's a Clawbringer kind of focused one versus the Stabbo, which, I mean, it's kind of up to you, but I like to focus into the Clawbringer as much as I can just to help boost up our different abilities. But the bottom part of it is really nice. Total crit chances reduced by 50%, but your critical hit damage is increased. This synergizes really well with one of the perks that we have in our skill tree, so it's been pretty nice being able to use that and just absolutely melt different enemies. With our legendary pendant, we're going to be using the sacrificial skeep just because whenever our health goes below 50%, we're going to get that skeep that we're able to not only get a revive off of, but also just be able to heal ourselves a little bit more. I have frost damage and Clawbringer power on it. Honestly, I would change out that frost power if I could, but it's nice whenever we're just activating the random status effects on enemies. Getting a little bit boost that is pretty cool. And then status effect damage on it as well. And then finally, our Buffmeister. Obviously, Buffmeister is pretty nice for gun builds just because it's able to give you that easy boost, so you're able to continue on just shooting as much as you humanly can. I also have it as a shock variant, so it helps boost up our shock damage. Just again, just kind of filling out all the different elements for this class. When it comes to our skill tree, obviously for the two different class feats we have here, for the Clawbringer, we have the Wyvern Companion that is going to do the fire breath all around the area, and whatever damage boost we get, it goes to our Wyvern, which is really nice. And then for the Stabbomancer, the dirty fighting, the critical hit chance is increased by 30%. This is really nice because it also synergizes great with another perk in our Clawbringer tree and helps mitigate some of the reduction that we have here from our class item. First off, in the Clawbringer tree, we're going to be using the Storm Dragon's Judgment action skill. We have that throwing hammer that whenever we throw it, does lightning melee damage, and whenever it sticks to an area, it's going to be doing lightning ability damage. We can recall it to refund some of our action skill timer. And it's really nice just for a constant activization of the action skill active or action skill start abilities from our weapons. And it also gets scaled up with our Clawbringer power. So again, this is just a really fun one, just to chuck and get huge melee damage out of it. Kind of helps, again, flesh out different parts of this class, since we're mainly going into like gun damage and element damage. When it comes to the Clawbringer skill points, we're going to do the Oath of Fire, the Fate Maker's gun damage, and their Wyvern Companion deal bonus fire damage. It's really nice just to get that extra chunk of fire while we're shooting maybe something like our White Rider. We have the Oath of Thunder for the extra lightning damage on our melee and our Wyvern. Again, we're going to be going a little bit into Wyvern stuff in this just because it is a genuinely good thing to have, just to kind of like chunk enemies while we're focusing on somebody else. Really helps weaken up and soften up the battlefield for us. Dragon Aura is a big one just for the extra elemental damage. Like I mentioned before, we're going to be doing these things here to help out our Wyvern. So Firebolt, Wyvern Companion occasionally shoots a Firebolt at enemies causing fire damage, and additionally we get gun damage out of it. We're going to have Storm Breath as well, where they're going to do the Lightning Breath, dealing lightning damage. That's going to arc between enemies, and also we get some damage reduction out of that. And then finally, I put 3 points into Friend to Flame just to kind of get through the tree, but also the fact that we're going to get 60% extra damage to our Wyvern. So, and again, remember, on top of whatever damage we get is transferred to our Wyvern as well. So that little dragon is going to be smacking nerds around the battlefield. But finally, we're going to go into Awe after dealing fire damage. The Fate Maker gains increased critical hit damage. And after dealing lightning damage, the Fate Maker gains critical hit chance, and that's a 20% extra damage boost and a 44% extra chance. And that's a 12-second duration as well, so we're able to constantly activate that just from doing different things like our Buffmeister, our Storm Dragon's Judgment, just shooting enemies. Again, you're going to be constantly chonking dudes, and remember, we have a 50% bonus to our critical hit damage on top of that 20%, so again, you're just nuking dudes. Into the Stabbo tree, we're going to do 5 points in Arsenal for that gun damage, spell damage, and melee damage. 3 points in haste for the extra melee attack speed and movement speed. And remember, whenever we activate our Buffmeister, that movement speed will actually be doubled, so we're going to be moving even faster. 2 points into Potent Poisons, essentially just to get down the tree, but that does give us a little bit extra stats effect damage and stats effect duration. Speaking of stats effects, we're going to go and exploit their weakness. Whenever Fate Maker applies a stats effect to an enemy, the affected enemy takes increased damage from all sources for a duration, and that's for every single stats effect applied. So as long as we're able to get like some corrosive, some fire, and some shock on enemy, that's an extra 18% to the enemies. And again, remember, if we even get like a frost in there as well, it's just really nice to have as many of those applications as possible. Going into Swift Death, while moving, the Fate Maker gains increased damage dealt, and that's 10% at default walking speed. So again, we're going to be constantly moving around. It's really nice, especially with the White Rider, because we don't really have to worry much about aiming. As long as we're keeping that being connected to an enemy, we're able to just do even more damage. So this is going to be constantly chonking up for us. This 1 point into Nimble Fingers is essentially just from our class mod, so don't really worry about that. But finally, Contagion is going to be another big one. Whenever Fate Maker applies a status effect, there's a chance it spreads to nearby enemies, and if there's no enemies nearby, apply a different random status effect to the initial enemy instead. So again, this is where it's really nice, especially with single targeting, just because if we already have that corrosive, that fire, and that shock on an enemy, we'll be able to apply even another status effect to an enemy, such as like Frost. So again, more damage to them, and the fact that it might spread to other enemies, making sure that we're doing even more damage, is really cool. As you can see here, we have 64% into our Clawbringer. That's going to go to the companion's health and their damage, and then also a 64% boost to our Storm Dragon's Judgment. Also, we have a couple extra things that'll go into down below, but we're not really into any of those things right now, so don't really worry about that. In regards to our Stabbomancer, that's 19% extra from the Shadows, Ghostblade, and Dirty Fighting critical hit chance, so it's going to boost that up a little bit as well. We're really obviously not doing Ghostblader from the Shadows, but an extra boost into our critical hit chance is really cool. For points down below, I usually just kind of fill out spell cooldown and action skill cooldown, just because having those cooldowns be as high as humanly possible is just really nice for the build. We didn't put anything into Constitution. I think put a couple points into Wisdom, but pretty much just like filled out our strength as much as we humanly could. Thanks so much for stopping by the video. Hope you guys really enjoy. Do remember this is going to be over on my Discord, so if you are on PC, head on over there and snag that save file. If not, if you're somebody who's on console, do know again, all you have to do really to go get any of this gear is go through the Chaos Chamber and go up to the SMG Bunny. Just reroll as much as you humanly can until you get the piece that you need, and then just go to the enchantment machine to get the proper enchantments. But other than that, this build is pretty straightforward. I've really been enjoying it. Again, this has honestly probably been the one setup that I've been using the most on the stream recently, just because I'm able to do all the chaos level content by myself pretty easily. Usually the Banshee bosses tends to be like one of my hardest ones to do, and I'm able to do it pretty easily now, especially for the fact that the White Rider is able to just lock onto enemies, and I can just kind of move around and dodge all of her attacks and still be doing damage. So really solid setup all around. And again, it's over on my Discord. Make sure you follow me over on YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch at Byrdman778 and using code BIRD at GFIL checkout. Again, they got that Tiny Tina's cherry vanilla flavor out right now, so snag some of that if you want. I'm going to be getting some cans of it and a little tub of it here soon too, so we'll do a little tasting over my stream if everyone snags one. But regardless, I hope you guys have a great night, day, whatever it may be.